All right, Jeff, I think we're live. So can you double check?
You can hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, geez. Technology's hilarious, man. Like, that was so fun for about 6. And then it was like, oh, I can't hear you. And the one thing what's to do.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me. So you think it's live?
I did press go live, and it says live. Twisted Spine says hi, Stu. What's up? I ran 4 miles. I run 4 miles every day. And after this, I will go lift weights because I haven't lifted weights today. But that's it. It's a good 2 hours a day. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. It makes me a lot more productive, but I got to spend 2 hours doing it every day.
Can you see if someone could paste the live link? If you got people in there with you?
Can someone paste the live link? I think Jeff wants to tweet it out.
In the Telegram.
In the Telegram.
Paste the link in the Telegram. Yeah. Oh, there we go, live. Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah. People
okay, I got it now. Jesus. Bury it on us. Okay. Oh, Twist is in here. Can they hear me yet?
You guys can hear Jeff, right?
Also, I can't see you, Stu. You still have the Lamden logo.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the picture is just a Lamden logo.
The picture's a...
Oh, hold on a second.
Click on it.
Jesus. There we go. Okay.
All right. Cool. You said you had an intro.
Yeah, I'm just tweeting this out.
Okay.
I don't think we're ready to quite start yet.
All right.
Okay, so Stu didn't get oh, this is screwed up. What's that? I have a lag, so when I talk, I hear myself talking in the video. So I should just mute the video.
Yeah, just mute it. You ever do that speech jammer thing?
What's that?
It's called a speech jammer.
Yeah, it sucks.
You've done it?
What's a speech jammer?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess your brain relies on hearing your voice.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah. And then it, like, you put on the headphones so you can't hear yourself, and then it basically does like 100 milliseconds or something for audio feedback, and you just can't talk.
Yeah, it's proven people can't even get, like, a couple sentences into anything.
Yeah, it's
Their
crazy.
brain just shuts down. Yeah.
Yeah, you just like stutter really bad. And you can tell that you're fully aware that you're doing it, but like you're just like, what? It's crazy.
Hashtags are so out of control. I don't even know what to put anymore. Okay. Cool. Okay, that just went out.
How many people we got in the room? 5. Oh yeah.
And does that count me and you?
6. I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, let's get that in Telegram. So yeah, you work at it every day, Stu?
Yeah.
You run in the rain?
I run on a treadmill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I used to run outside.
Bad for your knees.
Yeah, probably. I would run like in 20-degree Fahrenheit weather. Because like, you know, it's probably like the first 10, 15 minutes suck. And then you just, instead of sweating, your body just like heats up. And I could do it. It was not fun. People say like treadmills are boring, but like not.
They're not wrong, man. Treadmills are boring.
Yeah. Do
you watch TV? You listen to music?
Yeah, I listen to music. If I don't really go to the gym, there's like some treadmills here, and they're supposed to have TVs on them, but the TV like cable's all staticky. So, you know, it's more like I'm looking at pictures. You know. Okay. That was my computer. I'm gonna turn off Telegram. All right, Stu, drop some bombs. All right, bombs. Bitcoin or Tesla? Tesla stock or Tesla cars? All right, I'm also turning off my messages. Let's see.
Okay, that's out. So we should start having some people join now, I would think.
We got 9.
To 9.
Is there sound?
Last time we had, I think, 35 people at the max. And I think that video got 600 views. I don't know what good numbers are, but I was pretty happy about that.
600?
For like the first, you know, off the cuff.
Yeah, sure.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't know how many they get either, but like you think like millions of views is a lot, but then you look at some of these like big crypto guys, they do like 5K views.
So remember we were on,
I was at Stack of Blue Eyes. I'm holding it. That's right.
We were on, or Bitcoin Birch's podcast. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Crypto with Bitcoin Birch, whatever it was. That thing only got like 1,500.
Yeah. No, I know. It's like it's who is saying that? I think Jordan was saying that, is that there's only 5 people in crypto, you know? I think that's somewhat true. It's such an insular sort of thing, and it's so like it's like a peacock, right? It's a lot more, it looks like it's a lot more than it actually is.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Especially when you think of things like these influencers on YouTube who have like 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
But did they get those because of some giveaway they once did? And do they really have 100,000 people looking at their tweets every day? I'm going to say probably not.
Probably not. And I mean,
probably not.
When the crypto thing was happening, it was very unprecedented and people were making a lot of money. And then you're like, okay, people are making a lot of money in this thing. And everyone's like, it's going to hit 1 trillion market cap. And then the YouTuber only has 100,000 followers. Like in the YouTube world, 100,000 followers isn't a lot. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, it's peanuts.
Yeah. When do you see the first corporate project coming to help sustain the payroll of the Lamden team? Very soon. Not to get into details, but pipeline is, we're waiting on process at this point in time for some things to roll through. So that'll be good. And so that's going to be sort of a situation where we feel comfortable, a little more comfortable doing what we're doing.
Okay, we got like 15 people in here, so let's just start it off.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Viva La Lamden. I'm Jeff Scott, Lamden's community manager, and I'm here with Stu Farmer, the CEO of Lamden. This is a really off-the-cuff, informal podcast. We're probably not going to be setting times. It'll probably just not be every weekend either. So that's very inconvenient for a lot of people, and I apologize that you can always watch it afterwards, whenever you want. But we're here to have fun, answer some questions. We don't want to make it too stringent. It'll be varying lengths. So I'm assuming everyone's familiar with Lamden, but you can follow us at Twitter at LamdenTow. Telegram is at Lamden Chat, and please follow our news channel at Lamden News. Instagram, which is new, which is run by office manager, Stu?
Yeah, her name's Monica.
Monica, yeah. She's doing a great job. Reddit is our Lamden, and our blog is blog.lamden.com. So how you doing? How you doing, Stu?
Good. Someone says your mic's muffly. Yeah, that's a speaker issue we have. So hopefully next time around we'll get that straightforward.
We tried and we failed to do a proper what is it? Is it Hangouts that it was, or a Google Studio?
Yeah.
We tried, guys, but for some reason my mic wouldn't play. Stu couldn't hear me, so we had to revert back to this setup, which had problems last week, I admit.
Yeah.
But it's all we got right now. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But we tried.
Yeah, we tried. But cool. What did you want to start off with? We kind of had a little bit of we talked right before this on some topics. You want to just dive into them?
I'd like to just start with like a weekly update.
Sure.
Well, what you guys been working on and that kind of stuff?
So it's all been around getting the protocol snapped in with Seneca. So we're like at the point where, within the first few days of this week, it should be solid. There's still some the complete architecture is completely changed. So there's still some things that need to be modified. But Raghu told me on Friday that we're like 99% there. And of course, what does that mean? But he's very confident that it's not like a deeper problem. So that's good, I guess.
So what does that mean, snapping them together? I actually had a question this week of someone asking, what does that mean? Why are they separate? Why are they developed separately, and how do they interact?
Yeah, it's just a separation of concerns. So in software development, you want things to be as modular as possible so that if you ever do change something, it doesn't affect other things. So to be honest, the amount of rewrite that we did and integrating it together, because they are modular, it's happening a lot faster than you would honestly think it would otherwise. But the reason why you just separate things out is because you don't want dependencies. So you change something, you upgrade something, you don't want to affect everything else. You want it to basically just be isolated enough so that it snaps together.
So Cilantro, we're doing a rebrand of everything eventually. So we got Clove is now going to be swaps, and Seneca is just contracting now. So Lamden swaps, Lamden contracting.
Yeah.
Are we branding Cilantro just
to what? I don't know what.
The best Merkle weave in existence, or what do we?
Yeah, I don't know.
What are we going with?
Yeah, I haven't thought of it yet. Because just being blockchain is not very compelling.
Lamden protocol.
Yeah, protocol. The reason why I chose contracting is so that you could do pip install contracting. That name was available, and so I was like, oh hell yeah.
But smart contracting wasn't.
Well, if you want to do the thing about Python is that on the package side, there's not really a convention for 2 words. There's a convention in code. You just do word _ word. But when it comes to packages, everything is some people do camel case, some people don't. So I was like, it should be 1 word that's available. Yeah, it's surprising that it was available.
Yeah, so is it like general contracting, like I can get someone to come fix my sink?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, that's what the word is.
Yeah. So we were talking about, okay, so yeah, so we were talking about it being modular, right? So does that mean if Cilantro is the protocol and it's basically responsible for like writing the blocks and doing the consensus, that you could also plug in other smart contracting languages to it, or are they Seneca and Cilantro specifically written to work together?
Read my messages. Get some family members. Message me. Do not disturb.
Is that what that means? Because I know you're snapping databases in and out of Seneca all the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, ultimately, yeah, that's the idea. Now, you're not going to be able to take Solidity and then just pop it in. You're going to have to put a wrapper around it. But the idea is, yeah, basically the state layer is separate from the blockchain layer, so that the state layer is what the balances are of everything, and it's basically a big input-output machine. So like that thing, you put data in, it spits data out, and as long as that thing is doing what it's supposed to do, everyone on the blockchain should get the same inputs and outputs. That's basically it. But it's separated because, yeah, you could, in theory, put in different systems, and you might want to put in different systems, or you want to modify that system to have different rules in it. So you want to be modular, and you could go into the same thing on the blockchain side. Like you probably want to extend storage, so it's not just MongoDB right now. You might want to add different drivers and things like that. So yeah, you know, there's opportunity in the protocol layer as well, or you want to change the communication structure, or you want to change the nodes and the different sorts of responsibilities that they have. So there's a lot of different things that you could do, but I think this is probably the first example of how that looks like in code, especially for people who aren't completely aware of, like I said, separation of concerns as a software pattern.
Yeah, and I know that well, for RC now, we're now going to Redis again. So what was the decision there?
Okay, no, I don't think that long term it's going to be Redis, but the only thing that we wanted to do is because, like I said, the modularity of Redis is a lot easier than the modularity of LevelDB. So now LevelDB would require multiple processes, and we don't necessarily want that to block us from integrating the entire flow. We'd rather integrate the flow with Redis, which we know already works, and we didn't foresee this multiple cursor thing because we were developing this in isolation and it was on one process, but because the Cilantro layer does the multi-processing, when we integrated, we realized that LevelDB has this issue and we probably have to add another feature. So we were like, well, we could add that feature, so why don't we just go back to Redis for now and then add more of that sort of stuff afterwards. Redis is a long-term solution, it's just not possible. So if we were to use Redis, it would probably be Lettuce, which is what we used before, or SSDB, some sort of like abstraction layer, because Redis is all in memory. So we can't use it long term. We're just using it to get it to a point so that we can integrate it and then we can test the entire flow back and forth. But for long-term stability, it's not going to be Redis. Like I said, Lettuce. Go ahead.
Well, does that mean that so RC, the RC release will be Redis, and then the mainnet might be something else? Or are you going to release are you thinking of releasing mainnet with Redis and then changing it later?
Mainnet can't be released with Redis, and I would prefer not to release RCnet with Redis, but like I said, at this point in time, it's not necessarily as big of a, it's just the way that we decided to go about this particular feature. We decided that the bigger problem, because if we decided to keep LevelDB before we integrated, we'd have to fix this thing before we integrated. But we wanted to integrate first, so we just fell back to Redis because we know that entire functionality works on multiple.
AnarchyNet is running Redis, right?
It's running Lettuce.
It's running Lettuce. Okay, yeah.
But Lettuce is not the official version. There's some DevOps things that are kind of a pain. It's not ideal in terms of because it's not written by Redis is a very large sort of project, and lettuce is basically like a hack, I would say, or just like it's like one dude made it, and so do you want to trust that or not? Anyways, it's semantical at this point in time. I wouldn't stress out or look into it any more than like, or try to find meaning where there really isn't any.
Yeah, how's Ragu to work with? Is he all business? Does he joke around with? Like, what's he like?
Who?
Ragu.
Oh, Ragu. Yeah, you know, he's cool. When we play poker, he's funny because we play poker with him, and you think he's bullshitting half the time, you know, because it'd be like, I think I'm gonna go in, and he's just like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But he's always in the top 3 at the end, so you know, it's funny. It's funny.
Yeah, you guys like playing poker.
Yeah, poker's fun.
Poker's you play Friday night poker night?
Yeah. Well, last time we played, Monica bought some meme game that was highly inappropriate. Oh my god! I don't think anyone realized what they were getting themselves into. We're like, haha, memes, haha. No, this is like raunchy as fuck.
Did you shut it down?
No.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Cool. So any more updates, or is that just it this week, working towards the amalgamation of the two?
Yeah, so basically finishing up, there's some like minor things, right? And so it's, for those not concerned or aware of software development, it's all about, you know, doing what things when, so you're not blocking anything. So like that's why, for example, we rolled back to Redis. I'm waiting for the integration because we need to re-implement the stamps thing. We added the tracer back on. Colin did a multi-processing sandbox complete automation test so that we can basically use Python's like module loader to forget certain modules so that it's more containerized and sandboxed. Just robusting things together. I personally did some more smart contracting testing. I added some more libraries. I added a time delta library so that you can subtract dates and get some like duration of time that's not bound by specific moments in time. And then you can use that. You can be like, oh, this thing lasts for 1 week instead of saying it expires at a certain time. Or you're like, well, if you want to calculate a rate of decay, you need a time interval rather than a date, right? Like, oh, the price of this thing decays 10% every week. Okay, so what's a week? You have to calculate when or how long something is. So I added that. I also added like deterministic random numbers, pseudo random number generation. So people can do, you know, it's not completely random, but it's as random as anything that Ethereum says is random. So any lottery game or things like that Ethereum has, that's basically the functionality I added there. But it's good.
Yeah, but why can't it be random?
Because you have to be able to replay the entire blockchain. So right.
Yeah.
So it can be random enough, and you can use certain variables that change a lot, so that for somebody to attempt to game the random seed, they'd have to try out a whole bunch of combinations of things, and by the time they potentially crack it, it's already moved on to another block or something, similar to the proof of work concept. But it's not going to be completely random.
That's the whole point of blockchain, is just being able to play things back. So you can't just, if you was just completely random, it would be chaos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just can't replay it, right?
Yeah.
So we got Hodl Club says, come on, Stu, talk about Lamden. Don't do generic talk like last time. Well, Hodl Club, if you want me to talk about something, please ask me a question. Yeah, because I mean, right now that's basically what I'm talking about. If there's something specifically you want me to talk about, feel free. I was talking about the standard library integration. In my mind, is about Lamden, but it might not be about Lamden to you. So feel free. That's kind of what this forum is. I'm talking. Jeff has some questions. We're doing things that we think are interesting, but if you want anything, just feel free to ask questions.
Crypto Egg wants to know what's up, Stu.
What's up? Not much.
Okay, Apple's dumb. That's my two towel. That's funny. Okay, so that can that's the update portion, I suppose. I'm gonna do some updates to the Lamden website this week. I'll fix the team link at the bottom, the 404 that everyone brings up for the 3 times a week. We'll finally get that taken care of. And people rejoice. Okay, so we got some questions in here from ICT Junkie.
Okay.
Will Lamden facilitate an Oracle solution to make Lamden smart contracts really useful with real world data?
Yeah.
He's got a suggestion here, like create a connector to Chainlink. You familiar with Chainlink, Stu?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with the memes. They got spicy memes.
Okay. Which is, it says, the most advanced and decentralized Oracle solution out there, and their mainnet's going live soon. So, what's your thoughts on Oracles?
Well, an Oracle is really just like, you cannot Oracleize. You can't. Okay, so I'll back up. Basically, an Oracle really is just this thing that you trust to get some information from the web and then use that information to transact into the blockchain, right? Because like I just said, you have to be able to recreate the blockchain from the ground up in an isolated box, given inputs and outputs. So you have no connection to the internet when you're rebuilding the blockchain. So you can't do an Oracle call out to a web page that might have changed or isn't there anymore, right? And so what an Oracle just does is it goes, gets the information, you trust this Oracle, and then it transacts for you on the blockchain. So we have something right now similar that's like a scheduler, and what it will do is it will listen to events, and given certain parameters, it will transact, and you can tell it what it's transacting. So it could fetch something from the internet and then pop it back in. You could also have some sort of scheduler, instead of listening to the state of the blockchain, listens to, I don't know, some sort of web feed, and then based on that could transact in. And these are all just automation services. I think the way that Chainlink is going at it is really much like decentralized, I think. I'm not exactly sure what their entire value add is in terms of like what makes it so decentralized. I think you just run nodes, and then you get these jobs, and then you go and do the jobs and then you data. But I don't know what prevents you from necessarily cheating or anything like that. I had written previously about oracles and wanting to add them, and so it's something that's really on our mind. And one of the more important things about oracles is the sense of redundancy. So how do you create an oracle that has a level of redundancy, especially if it's on a piece of like web information that changes over time? So like the current Oracle solution, this is pretty much what I just described, is that you emit some sort of event if you're using Oracleize it. And Oracleize has a computer that's listening to the blockchain. It's filtering all the events, and it's only looking for those specific events. And you've told Oracleize, when I emit this event, I want you to do a certain thing. So it might be to look up the price on CoinMarketCap and then transact back into my smart contract. And that's what they're doing. And that's basically why we're writing the scheduler, but we're not coming from it from Oracleize as like a community project. We're doing this purely for enterprise automation, but it has an application here as well.
Okay, so you would think that you could use your scheduler to do oracles, but you're not doing it for that purpose.
Yeah. Basically.
Okay, is that something? That's what Colin was working on.
Tejas was working on it. A lot of people were working on it.
Why are we? I know it was a new thing that you were kind of working on. So what did we need to implement that for?
The scheduler.
Yeah.
The scheduler.
A cool feature, or did it solve a problem we were running into?
It's anticipation for a lot of enterprise deployments, because people in enterprise are going to want this functionality, is what we're saying. But yeah, I think basically we're anticipating this need that's going to be met, whether it's on, we're doing it because we see an enterprise need, but it could be on like just a general developer's need as well.
Cool. All right, question 2. What will the tokens be used for, except for storing in nodes and paying transaction fees? Is there any other requirements to have TAO?
Any other requirements to have TAO?
Any other reasons, I suppose. Yeah.
Reasons to have TAO. Well, I mean, similar to the Ethereum concept, right? Like if you're trying to be a developer, right, then it's like twofold. It's a good way to transmit value throughout this network that you can develop applications on, and on those applications you can use that as some sort of monetization source. You can create other tokens, and you can create just dApps, right? And so the reason why you'd want to participate in that would be because you want to develop some sort of smart contract or something that is potentially interesting or you could monetize. And it's pretty easy to have this flow of crypto over this network using this token. And it's essentially hitting those tones of somewhat a store of value, because people do like the store of value concept, and they want this thing to grow as the community grows. So it is a store of value. Then they also want it to transact and do some other stuff as well. And so we're trying to capture both of those with it.
Is it safe to say we don't want to shoehorn use cases into TAO?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So can you say some more about the different types of nodes, who you see running them? So like witnesses nodes will most likely be run at home or by cheap VPSs. Do you think master nodes will be run by companies, things like that?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. It depends what ultimately the network grows into. And so our assumption is that you develop the infrastructure to allow people to use it however they want. You do certain things so that people adopt that infrastructure so that it builds out into something. But it's hard to predict what people are going to build it into. I think if you would have went to social media when it was just emerging, and then now you look at it now, they're two very different things. And there's this Marshall McLuhan, this concept of technology, that ultimately technology can turn into the antithesis of itself. And you have to be prepared for that. And the irony is generally true. And so if we don't really want masternodes to be like held by companies, but you have to think like if that happens, right, you can definitely presume that happening if it grows, and then the requirements are like pieces of server equipment that are so powerful that only companies can purchase them. What potential impacts does that have on your network moving forward? And so I don't foresee or necessarily want it to be centralized in that way, but what happens if it does? And then what can you do as someone contributing to the project to make it more decentralized?
From the chat, why masternodes and not just staking?
Yeah.
You need the proof of stake?
Yeah, and this is a good question. Basically, you see this issue, or at least I see this issue. Proof of stake ultimately makes the rich richer, because those who are rich make more money, right? Those who have gotten their stake early on, they just stake and they leave it, and then they're out. And you generally see this Pareto distribution where a small number of people have the most coins in the network, so they're just going to become the richest. And that it will centralize over time. That's just the mathematics of it, because generally those who are the richest also don't need to necessarily spend the cryptocurrency. They'll just leave it there. Maybe they'll siphon off a little bit, but they have a huge, massive stake. And also you see a lot of potential collusion happening. This happens on EOS, and this happens on Lisk, because they have a direct one-to-one between their cryptocurrency and votes. So those who vote the most get voted in as a delegate. And generally what happens is the delegates say, hey, if you vote for me, I'll give you a split of my rewards. And they just amass a ton of votes. And then all of those delegates together can just collude and determine certain things. They can change the consensus to what they want and things like that. So generally when you stake, it's like, yeah, you basically are purchasing a vote but the amount of the stake needed for that one master node is so large that it's hard to collude in that way. And if you do want multiple master nodes, you have to put in the extra hardware, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Is kind of what the concept is.
Hey guys in the chat, if you actually have a question, can you just tag Lamden so I can easily see them? Stu, when do you see the first corporate project come to help sustain the payroll of the Lamden team? So there's like two things here, right? Like Lamden's building something, it's open source that anyone can use. So any corporation, their IT departments can download Lamden and they can make smart contracts and they can screw around with it and use it. And if they do decide to use it and they do use Tau, that's good for the network, right? So that's just something that we just hope will happen. And then there's another thing where companies will just contact Lamden and be like, hey, we don't really have time to figure this out. Do you want to figure this out for us? And contract Lamden to do some consulting work. So like I'm just saying the corporate business doesn't necessarily have to be directly contract work. If just by the fact of them using it, it will bring activity to the network.
For sure.
Anyway, yeah. Do you want to say something to that, Stu?
Any of those conversations are obviously under NDA as you're negotiating, especially with large corporations. So I wouldn't be able to necessarily comment on these things, but I would remain extremely optimistic in the short term. I would say, I just that it's not like I think I'm probably I say a lot less than people want me to say, and
let's approach that question from a different angle then, because this question comes up a lot because I think the ICO, and I wasn't in on the ICO and I wasn't even around back then, but I believe the marketing was, hey, we're enterprise, we're for good. So if the assumption is that you are talking to corporations and stuff, what kind of feedback are they giving you about Lamden as compared to maybe the competition? What do they like that you're saying? What do they like that they're seeing?
Yeah, we did some market research and we just talked to Fortune 500 companies, and every single person who said that they experimented with blockchain basically said that we had 6 months to come up with some proof of concept, which is generally like if Visa or someone does a blockchain discovery process, they'll have a department that just does new technology, right? And that they come up with proof of concept. So someone from up and give us a report as to whether we should continue investigating this as a potential new technology for the company. They say, yeah, okay. So, they get a budget, they get like so many months, that's just how it goes. And what they said is that for Ethereum, it took so long to get up the network that we wanted that it wasn't worth it. And for Hyperledger, we couldn't even figure it out because it was so complex. And
I've used a lot of IBM first-party software, and it is a nightmare. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And I mean, conspiracy tinfoil cap on. It's IBM's also a consulting firm, so they're like, hey, you need some help. This is not crazy, a crazy tactic. I mean, we're doing it too, but I would say that when it comes to a deployment stack and when it comes to the things that people expect out of a piece of software that's being deployed across the network, ours is closer to the general standard of what they've been doing for a long time.
Cool, yeah, and that's what you envisioned from the ICO,
yes.
Right? You just saw that as a problem.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Let me take a break real quick, and then we can continue talking.
Absolutely.
All right. Cool. Okay, I had a sticker and it just fell off. I didn't do anything.
Okay. I don't know if they can hear me because I've been asking them if they can hear me and I haven't had anyone say they can. Is it possible it's just only you that hears me? Oh, well. Jesus, guys, I asked like 5 minutes ago.
Everyone says yes now.
Fuck me. Cool. That was all for us. Okay, so this is today we had a lot of people in chat really interested in marketing. Obviously, your stance is we are ninja marketing right now. We're just under the radar, and that's where we want to be. A lot of people do not understand that.
I think a lot of people don't like that. I don't think that they don't understand it. They just don't like it, and that's fine. I don't expect people to like it necessarily, and I wouldn't like it either if I was on the other side. So I mean, like, yeah, I get where people are coming from. There's frustration there.
I'll sum up today as a question in marketing. Why not?
What do you mean? Why not?
Why not marketing?
Why? Okay, yeah. So this is what I say. People are like, why aren't you marketing? And then they just are frustrated because they see this project that's supposed to be so great, and then they see these other projects which aren't. And then, you know, if you look at just technically what's going on in terms, they're like, what the hell? There's a discrepancy here, right? And that makes sense. This audio is slightly popping for someone else. It might be this little Velcro thing. I'll stop playing with it. But let's go through what this is. So like, what do people want, or what is this thing that it is? It's essentially a platform that people can develop things on, right? It's not necessarily something flashy. So like, let's take the Neo example, right? Neo rebrand. Everyone want hype as hell over it. It's totally decentralized. It's run by like 7 computers. They say it's going to be part of the smart economy, and you look at their virtual machine and it's less powerful than Ethereum. So people don't realize that, but it's not going to survive in the long term, and it's slowly declined down. You don't really hear a lot about Neo anymore. It's like less than a year, so they have 1 year of like that. What does that mean? Like, that's it. They're done, right? So if you want to spend all your money doing marketing like that, you can. And ultimately, people don't care because they're not the people running Neo. So what can they do? They'll just basically be like, well, there's another project that's hyping up, and they'll just move to that. But the Neo people, the people who run it, are stuck with that thing, and they either just destroy it and move on to the next thing or not. And so there's this different mentality of how things are going or how people approach this stuff. And I'm looking at it like, I don't know, this is cool stuff. I want to build cool things on it. Everyone's super into like why this is important, but then when it comes down to it, they actually don't support the ones that are, until, you know, they pop off, and then everyone else tries to follow it. And that's just kind of how it works.
I'd like to know if any of these companies are actually marketing their product to the people that are going to use it. No. Or is it all crypto marketing, right?
I don't think I've ever talked to somebody who's not in the blockchain community, who's just a developer, who's like, oh, I made a dApp on Ethereum, and they're not involved in the blockchain world. Like, it's not that they're like, it's not another tool out of their developer toolkit. They're like, I love blockchain, I made a dApp, or they're a software developer and they don't use blockchain at all. I've never heard of somebody who looks at it like, oh yeah, I've used that. Like I've used this type of database before to do the project that I want to do. Mm-hmm. It's not like that. And so there is some sort of like, I mean, people compare it to like a cult mentality, right? And I think there's something to that. There's truth in everything. I think that it's not necessarily fair to call it that, but I think that why people say that is because people are into all of the blockchain. When they subscribe to blockchain, they are in all of it. And then people who aren't definitely aren't. So they're very mutually exclusive concepts. You rarely see someone who just has dabbled in it and used it and doesn't have a strong, like if they don't have a strong opinion on it, they end up not using it anymore because they're just like, that was cool.
The way that the crypto investors, and I don't know, Moon Boys, the crypto Twitter, for instance, the way it operates is very scary to like developers. Like I've lost followers by tweeting some crypto stuff, right? Like some development followers. Like it's not something that people like to see a lot of, right?
No.
It can seem very childish, and a little immature. I'm not calling people, that invest in crypto childish and immature, but there definitely is a perception of that. And so when you start marketing like that, you actually kind of, to me, devalue your perception to those people, right? That you want to use your product, right? You don't want necessarily to have them think that you just want them to develop for you so that you can make a bunch of money off your coin, right? And that which is entirely the perception, right? When you're on comment feeds on Twitter and stuff, and people are like, someone will ask, some influencer, every hour someone's asking, what's the best low market cap coin, right? And everyone's da 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 da. And there was what was it, Nullx or Nulls or one of those those projects who they have a project out, like they have a mainnet and they have APIs and all, like they have docs and everything. Like you can definitely go to their site and try to build a D app, but their investor fan base, like their Moonboy fan base, portrays them in a completely different light, and it's actually off-putting a little bit. Like I have people tell me like they have different API, all different programming languages. And I know that that's garbage. That doesn't mean anything, right? Like an API is by nature agnostic. So,
right.
Like to me, it's like these people are actually damaging the perception of that company. So you got to watch it out a little bit. Like I would like to see when products out, we market towards developers and bring interest into the project. And by doing so, you can also attract investors that way too. But is there anything inherently wrong with also marketing to investors? No, but I think it's definitely a balance between the two. I don't think just marketing right now to investors is the right move.
That's not what I'm interested in. I mean, I've been very clear about that. That's not why I started this project, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. So I think people look at this project and they see that it's different, and then they're like, wait, I mean, it's different for a very vast amount of reasons, and part of the reason is that the approach that we're looking at is completely different. So like that, I think people are like, oh, this is interesting, it's very different. And then when we behave differently, they're like, what the hell? But they don't remember that we're looking at it completely differently. So that is why we're behaving in that aspect. I'm interested in the technology, and people, whether or not people like that, I don't know. I don't know what to say. If you look at like, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say maybe we don't have to say anything else on that.
Sure. Yeah. What I also tend to say is, like, let's say you take $1 or whatever, and you put it into the marketing machine, right? And the marketing machine does its stuff and it spits out a user at your site, right? Okay. So now the users at your site, what do? Generally, a company, when they put money into marketing, are looking for, they're looking for some sort of return so they can get like more users, things like that. What is the end value of what that person's supposed to do at this point in time?
Was that a question to me?
Well, that's just a question in general, right?
Okay, so I was reading the chat. I was distracted.
So yeah, what do you want someone to do when they hit the site? And I think what people want is not what I'm going to do. So I'm not just going to market it and then be like, oh yeah, it's this thing. It's so important for, the number of APIs that it has, and it does interoperability. I talked about that last time. What's the newest hot word right now?
Right.
I'm just not interested in that.
How do you woo devs once it's out then? What would your go to either like so we got how do you bring Neo, Icon, ETF devs over to Lambden?
Well, I don't know any Neo devs, to be honest. Anyone that makes a token on Neo does it so that they can say they made a token on Neo, and it's not a token on Ethereum. I don't see any technical attributions to it because, like I said, Neo is less technically capable from a smart contract position than Ethereum. So I don't know why you would. But I've had people come to me and they're like, oh yeah, this is one of the first tokens on Neo. What do you think about that? Okay, you know. You want to capture people, like I said, you want to capture people who are generally interested in this thing, but they do not want to subscribe to this moon boy philosophy. They're like me. I really like this technology. I think we talked about this last time, Jeff. You're like, I Googled how to make a dApp because I was interested. Like that person. And there's tons of people out there, right? Like there's
I didn't go to CoinMarketCap first and try to figure out what the
You know, and you're just interested in that sort of stuff. And I think what I would do is really let people know the amount of effort that it would take for you to write some sort of application and then to monetize that to support whatever you're doing is way less than what it is right now by using a Lambda smart contract. So the focus has to be on, look, you can take something, and that's why I think like right now I'm developing this game. And so there's this pixel game, right? But then I'm also thinking about this more complex game. And these games can be monetized so that the game creator can easily create some sort of support mechanism so they can keep on doing it, right? That's intriguing to a lot of people.
And the general speed at which you can create a smart contract and then a simple front end, you know, you can easily create tutorials and YouTube videos that are half an hour, 20 minutes. Where if you were to make that same video on Ethereum, it's like a 6-part series, right? So that kind of stuff is easily spreadable, So if you're the person who wants marketing, those videos can be spread around and people can actually see what's going on here. That's just hugely important. Having people use it, seeing what they can do, how easy it is. It'll happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna make that content for sure.
Right, and I remember hearing people say, "Oh, Ethereum and serverless," and so people started to make this concept between like Ethereum as a backend, so that you don't have to worry about the backend. And there was some value that people saw in that because the backend's one of the hardest parts, right? Like storing the database, now creating an API, and doing all this like core stuff to make sure that you can actually interact with it properly. I mean, it takes a lot of time. If you just focus on the smart contract as your backend application, and then a nice little front end to interact with it, and you're done, and there's a monetization aspect into it, that's cool. I mean, just think of how people would use that to create interesting things. And this is not a different value add than Ethereum, but the value add is that it's more about the developer experience, I think. And I talked about this last time. They're the people who have the creative mindset versus people who have the deep engineering mindset, and trying to bridge that gap is important.
Cool. I'm just trying to see if we got any follow-ups on that. Someone's asked about Dragon Chain. Do you think Dragon Chain is similar to Lamden in any way?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about Dragon Chain recently. Okay. They have no like mainnet, and I think that they have like their permissioning system is interesting, where they have different levels, but I just don't really. I'm just not compelled by them. And so,
what's the ultimate value in just having two chains talk to each other? Aside from the fact that there is thousands of chains now, because there's thousands of chains now, and so a solution to make them work together seems appropriate. Mm-hmm. But is there 1,000 chains now because there's not like a good one?
I mean, there's going to be 1,000 chains no matter what, just because people want to write new stuff, and not one solution is ever going to capture everybody, right? So you're going to have different standards, and the way I'm looking at it is that, like, look at these as maybe potentially standards, and then the networks need to interact with each other just as much as one banking network needs to interact with another one, and they need to link up and say, okay, how are you communicating over your bank network? And then I'm going to translate those messages so that it can communicate to mine. That's the value there. So you could say, yeah, Bitcoin, I think we talked about this last time. You could do something on the Bitcoin network that triggers a response on another network, and that's important, and that could do some cool stuff. And what exactly it could do, I do not know. But that would mean for me, if I'm making a game, I could say, oh yeah, this action costs 500 Satoshis. So send 500 Satoshis to this smart contract script with this hash, and then you would have that scheduler, right? That scheduler would be listening for that event, and as soon as that event happens, it would necessarily trigger. Or, I mean, generally we'd be doing an atomic swap, right? And so you'd be like, okay, once that atomic swap has been successful, you can redeem the action on the other side, and so that's the value there.
That whole process, right? Is it not easily solvable by the fact that Seneca can just import other contracts into itself? Like if I wanted to just import that banking contract into my smart contract and call its methods without having to reach across chains, is that not just quicker and simpler?
Yeah, sure. But then the other, like whoever your customer is has to be on the same network as you. So if they were, yeah, you just use Lambda.
Right. So like it almost, how do you put it? Interoperability is going to exist, but it almost doesn't really. It's not really a problem on like so that exists on Ethereum.
Yeah, totally.
So even if we both built smart contracts on Ethereum, they still have interoperability problems, do we not?
I mean, it depends. I'll put an asterisk there, right? Like that's why the ERC20 standard came out, because if you just have people making a token that behaves any way they want, then yeah, there's going to be interoperability issues, and there's not much you could do there. But it's. I want to see people use this thing to understand exactly what the power of it is. I can sit here and be like, yeah, it's going to be great, but until people start actually using it and understanding the simplicity involved, it's going to be just me saying so. I think a lot of the things that I say are going to start to be realized truly when people start to use the software.
There might be a new segment here that we lead into that's Stu talks about another coin. Because this is yes. So what do you think about this coin? What do you think about that coin?
Sure.
So what do you think about Cardano?
I think that they're writing a smart contracting language called Plutos, which is based off of Haskell, which is a notoriously hard language to learn, and utilizes something called functional programming, which takes like, oh yeah, so if you're a programmer and you've been programming, this complete way, forget everything that you learned, because we're going to take it all the way back and we're going to redefine everything. Like a function is completely different, and how you move data around is completely different. And there you go. Like it? And so, I mean, no, I don't necessarily like that part. I think that I don't see where their niche is in terms of like what they're trying to accomplish. Like, what is the end game of Cardano? I don't know. I don't. Do they want to be like Ethereum? Do they want to replace Ethereum? I don't know.
I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know it was explained to me back in the day. It was just like a bunch of really smart people wrote a white paper, and they don't necessarily care. They don't necessarily care about the use cases of it. They just wanted to create like the best, thing that they could possibly. I don't know if that's true, but it's just like a bunch of high level doctorate people created a white paper.
Well, they kept on saying this. They're like, oh, it's an academic paper, and they like submitted it to an academic like that gives it any more merit than anything else. If you read it, it reads just like any other white paper. And really, any white paper, the original good ones, like the Ethereum white paper and the Bitcoin white paper, could definitely be submitted to some sort of publication or journal and be accepted. Absolutely. I think that's completely true. They just went through the process of getting it accepted, and then they said it's been peer reviewed. And now peer reviewed doesn't mean that people look at it and then are like, yes, this is a perfect implementation of a blockchain. This is great. What peer reviewed means is when they conducted a study here, did they do actual research methods that come up with objective results, regardless of what it is. It could be about it could be psychology, right? And it's peer reviewed.
They make sure you're following a scientific method.
Yeah.
Any updates on Digitex?
Hold on, I want to answer the crypto wag has been asking me about Hashgraph. I think I did respond to you today, so check your Telegram. But Hashgraph, I can't really comment on because it's closed source and it's patented. So who knows what they're doing? You might as well just put your. I mean, it's like so what at that point.
You can't invest in it anyway. So kind of a moot point.
Are you going against what we just talked about because we were just talking about this Moon Boy thing?
Well, I know a lot of people just they want to invest in everything. They want the new hot thing, right?
I see.
So if you're interested in Hashgraph, are you trying to use it?
Yeah.
Or do you want to invest in it? If you want to invest in it, you really can't. I mean, maybe you got more money than me, but the regular person can't really invest in it.
Right. You could use it, but even if I were using a piece of software, I'd want it to be open source because you really don't know. So like all the software components that we use are also open source. We don't use any closed source things. So like Redis is open source, or Lettuce is open source, or LevelDB is open source, right? And those are like very robust systems. So the fact that it's not open source is scary, and it looks like people are trying to. I mean, this is a tactic, right? They want to take that piece of intellectual property and make it worth more because that's a business. So absolutely, that's not something I'm interested in using though. It'd be similar like you're using the Oracle database. Okay, great. Or you're using, I don't know, Microsoft Access. Yeah, it's not open source, but the people who are using it don't even know what open source is, so they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Tech-wise, it's interesting. We do something similar. I'll say that. We do, like if Hashgraph does a graph of the transactions, we do like a graph of the blocks, so to say.
Yeah, Lambda they're not a block. Lambda's not a blockchain, right? You have other names that you want to call it, but it's probably
it's a blockchain.
It's kind of a DAG, but it's not really a DAG, and this or that, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to really pinpoint what it is.
I'll draw it really quickly. It's like master nodes. All master nodes can essentially submit their transactions to the network, right? Like you submit your transaction to the master node and it's inside the network. But depending on where that master node is, it doesn't matter. They're not all collected into one bin. They're all executed.
We need to get you a whiteboard.
Oh yeah, I know. They're all executed in parallel. And then before they kind of collect together to become a block, ultimately, they go through conflict resolution, which makes sure that there aren't any collisions, so that like if I try to spend money on two different sub blocks and I try to double spend, that doesn't happen, and tries to reorder it really quick. Then they all kind of come together and they get these, like, they're called sub block contenders, and they essentially are like, hey, this is what I think has happened. The delegates then sign off on all of those, and once all of that stuff is kind of grouped together into a big basket of sub blocks to create the block, that block is submitted. So it's kind of both. It's kind of like a funnel in a way, where it's taking all this stuff and chunking it down like an ETL, and then out of it, it gets a nice little block made out of all little tiny little blocks. kind of fun, you know.
Kind of fun. Yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that. I don't have any follow-up questions to that. Does anyone else have any follow-up questions to that? Is that what a DAG does? I don't know.
DAGs are like if each transaction is a block, and then there's infinite sub-blocks. Like you just submit a transaction into the network, and then all the nodes kind of like piece it together into like some weird web, but they're all kind of going the same direction. That makes sense.
Sorry.
We're not a DAG. It's not a DAG. It's more like when you submit a transaction to a node, the node has a collection of transactions that it needs to order. And so it'll put yours afterwards. Like if you put a transaction in, now it has like a vector. Like, okay, someone puts a transaction in and it just exists. And it's like, hey, I did this thing. You need something to happen after it so that there's another point in time, right, for it to be the next transaction. So when you submit something to a DAG, you submit something to the node and there's another one, and they're like, well, this happened afterwards, so I'm pointing it like that, right? And then they might get two around the same time, and it could be like that. But then over time, it turns into this big, it's called a directed acyclical graph, which just means that over time, even though there's a whole bunch of different transactions being processed, they all go in one direction of time. So it ends up looking like this.
Everyone get that? Okay. I don't think we're going to talk about Tron today.
Hodl Club. All right, well, Hodl Club's new. I feel I haven't seen your name. What do I think? And he doesn't know that I hate Tron. I hate Tron, and I'm very vocal about how much I hate Tron. Now you're not welcome to the club. I think it's just hype. They're just copying the technology. And
well, you go off on Tron. I'm gonna take a break.
Okay. All right. Why do I think Tron is trading above 1 billion market cap? Because they get suckers to think it's something that it's not. I mean, that's it. That's all it is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can also have a debate about what 1 billion market cap really is. What is 1 billion market cap? I mean, you've seen wash trading before, so how accurate is market cap anyways? Tether is completely insolvent. They lost $850 million out of their like $1 billion bucks. And the guy came out to say, oh, we have 73 cents for every Tether. So right there, anything that trades against Tether's market cap is 30% less than what it says it is. So current stablecoin battle. I kind of thought about this. And so I heard that stablecoins were going to start offering interest. And then one man army. Yeah, I would say. I mean, ultimately, Tron doesn't give a shit. They're just trying to do whatever they can to be like the hypiest, right? Like they're playing the game. They're playing the game. Like you can't hate them for playing the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game, you know? And I just don't really like the entire concept of like taking this aspect and tainting it. Because when I go and talk to businesses, I do not say blockchain. I definitely do not say cryptocurrency. You say cryptocurrency to anyone in business and they will run away because of how the game's being played right now. I have to say we're at a blockchain or we develop distributed systems because it does actually have an impact on the reputation of what's going on in here. People aren't stupid. You know, there's more people who aren't interested in Tron than there are that are. And you have to also try to understand why people aren't interested in it. Is it because they haven't heard about it, or is it because they're not really into crypto? So for people that don't look at the other side, I think it's hard to see that there is a negative reputation to cryptocurrency, and people are like, haha, Bitcoin tanked, dum-dums. I mean, this happens all the time, but that's basically where it is. People don't take it seriously.
Okay, I'm back, Stu. Let's
so
shelve the coin talk for a second and watch some news. Maybe take a little break from that stuff.
Sure. Just a parting note for Hodl Club is where is, like, in the grand scheme of like great innovations, like things that are worth remembering, where does Tron fall in? Tron is not going to be something that you want to necessarily remember. I mean, Ethereum is, because Ethereum created the smart contract. But how is Tron going to be remembered in 10 years when people are done with it? They're going to be like, yeah, it was some crap that got jacked and popped up during this crazy speculatory phenomena when this technology was taking off. You got one shot, right? You got one shot at it, and time moves forward. And so, like, I would rather solidify something that's really meaningful now than kind of take advantage of a fleeting moment and then never be able to have any credibility after that. So that's kind of the answer to that question, I think. And we can go into news now.
Sure, we'll try this. Maybe this news segment works out, maybe it doesn't, but we'll give it a shot. So, Washington state law recognizes blockchain record as legally valid and enforceable. So a new law has a clause which prevents discriminating against electronic records which have in some way been part of a distributed ledger. So the actual law says an electronic record may not be denied legal effect, validity, or enforceability solely because it is generated, communicated, received, or stored using distributed ledger technology, which is huge. And then I know this is relevant to you here, Stu. Ohio has recently introduced a bill that allows the government of Ohio to track and share identifying information such as car titles and licenses via blockchain.
Interesting.
What do you think about that?
What I think about that is that when I left Ohio, there was this company called, I don't know if I'm going to name drop them, but they were a title blockchain companies, and they were they're based in the capital of the state. So part of me wonders if there's been some communications with the state legislation there to talk about this and to get this essentially used for their business. I wouldn't be surprised.
For me, some of the most interesting uses of blockchain are in the public sector like that. Mm-hmm. Like are in governments where transparency is paramount. So it's nice for me to see that they're actually embracing that, right?
Yeah. It's going to have to happen in the private sector first, unless the technology's been developed. If you look at the internet, and you look at just public sphere in general, the public sphere is always starved of cash. So they're not going to implement the top tier thing. What they are going to do is they're going to say a contract is legally binding, because that doesn't mean they have to buy any more infrastructure. I mean, these public computers are on like Windows XP still, let's be honest here. This shit's old. So I don't think it's a good place to focus, but I think that it's vital to increase transparency there.
Sounds like a good place to disrupt, though.
Yeah, no, in a perfect world, yeah, absolutely.
How long before we see blockchain voting? And would you like to see that?
Would I like to see that? How can you make sure that people don't know who is voting, so they can't target you and they can't attempt to pass legislation that conveniently restricts your right to vote? That's my concern. And then how do you validate?
Isn't that the same as just polling, though? People just ask you and people tell them all the time.
Yeah, sure, but there's a difference then between looking at the election data and then going through it, like who has access to that election data. And then when you're going into the polling booth, you definitely need to show, at least when I did, I actually don't think I need to show ID. Some states you have to show ID. What then, right? If you're like, you walk in and then they don't identify you. Like you basically go into the room and then you're free to go. There's like a check to see if you're there, and then you get ticked off and then you're gone. So they know that you voted, but that's about it.
That's how it works in Canada too.
Yeah. So
the double-edged sword is blockchain. That is distributed ledger. It is kind of a double-edged sword, right? It's transparent, but then that can be, I suppose, used against you, right? You can go look up who's got the most Bitcoin in the world. Go look it up, right? If you know who that guy is,
right?
It's a detriment to him, but also he gets to use Bitcoin. So
I think there's probably some hybrid solution where it works, because security is a big issue with these systems. And I think that if you can have a hybrid solution that's not completely digital, it still has some human aspect where you hold the humans accountable, where it's like, okay, you pass in, you go up and you're like, hey, I'm here. And they're like, yeah, you're good. This is your district or whatever, go ahead. And they give you some sort of key, one-time key that you can use. And then that key is not attributed to you, but they can tell how many people did vote in that district and they can count the votes immediately. Okay, then that makes sense. And then they can make a count between how many one-time keys were used, or, if you walk out and you don't vote.
You still there? Okay, yeah, sorry. I like that solution a lot. It doesn't actually tie your vote to you, which is cool. I mean, whatever. Like, I just think that's pretty much what, in my mind, what this kind of technology should be used for.
Yeah,
is just validating that this is 100% correct, like right away, right? And all this nonsense with vote counting, it drives me insane.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, you're gonna have people who, it has to be done right and has to be done in a transparent aspect, because some people don't like digital voting. They think that it's less secure. So it's either like paper ballots, which are completely analog, but then you have the hanging chad philosophy. What the hell was that about? But then how do you get them to be okay with it? Like, you need public support, I think.
So I got a couple other ones, but this one I think is just hilarious. So there's a guy mining. Well, there's somebody mining Bitcoin Cash. He's got over 40% of the hash rate. He signs every block with Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody knows who this guy is, but he's killing it, and they're afraid he's gonna get a 51%. Nobody knows his motives, but they've in the article they kind of tried to surmise what he might be up to, and they pretty much just guessed everything. But I think he's trying to amass a ton of BCH in order to dump it for Bitcoin SV.
That's what
to
people
drop
think.
The price of Bitcoin Cash. That seems convoluted, doesn't it?
Dude, I don't know. I think Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV are two bastard children arguing with each other. I think it's so funny, right? Because they're like, oh, Bitcoin Cash is the true original Bitcoin. And you're like, what's the claim to that? And they're like, because actually Bitcoin forked from Bitcoin Cash. And you're like, dog, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I think
they own the Twitter account, man. That makes them the king.
Yeah, they own the domain as well.
Yeah.
Roger Ver, my boy, yeah. Roger Ver.
The biggest play in crypto was right there, I
think. Yeah, seriously. What I think about that, I mean, let's see some action. I'm interested in seeing that. They did no, they didn't do a gas attack. But Bitcoin Cash, the guys behind it were basically doing a spam attack on Bitcoin for a while to get the miners to flip over. I don't know if you remember that, but
I did read something about that. Yeah, I don't quite understand how that works. I don't totally understand mining to understand how that happens. So
yeah. It's basically making it more profitable to mine on Bitcoin Cash, and because of the same mining algorithm, some people had automatic like mining switches. So the idea was that if they get it so that it's more profitable, a ton of mining power will automatically flip over, and they can solidify it as being infinitely more profitable from there forward because they have more mining power, I guess.
But then couldn't it just flip back?
Yeah,
I mean,
it did.
Short-term win, is it? Is that what they're going for? Short-term?
Going for what?
They're just going for a short-term win, like a.
No, this is like it's like some stupid half-baked, like, oh, we can hack the system plan. Like they're like, we'll manipulate the system and it will work. It definitely will work, and it just didn't work. Yeah, it's interesting.
The last part of this article suggested that reorganization is apparently not possible on Bitcoin Cash due to a recent upgrade they did.
What does that mean? So you can't do a 51% attack?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
I didn't think it did either. That's why I wrote it down. I thought I'd bring it up to you. Like that would make it not a blockchain or something, right? Or not decentralized, if that wasn't possible. I don't know how you patch that out, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
They might be doing it that like they just don't do the automatic flip over to the longest chain, so the longest chain doesn't win, you know? To prevent against that might fix it.
Lastly, I'm just curious of your thoughts on Tether. I don't think you like Tether. I think I've heard you go off on Tether a little bit. But what do you think about the fact that they're just not 100% backed?
I don't think they've been backed I've been a huge skeptic of them ever since I learned that they're banking out of Panama, which was like a year and a half ago. There is no doubt in my mind that they aren't backed by USD. I don't know why people ever believed that they were, especially when you see that there's some collusion.
Well, I'll tell you why they believed it, because their website said they were.
Yeah, well, so what? You know?
Yeah, so they were 100% fiat backed. That's the only problem I have with the situation, right? Because a fractional reserve is a pretty common thing, right? But why would they say that they were 100% backed and then just not be? Like if they had just come and said that they were fractional reserve, I don't think people would have had a problem with that. Do you?
No. Well, yeah. I mean, asterisk. I think they probably would have, because they started off as one-to-one backed. I don't think any project. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think Tether started off fine, and then they started doing bad shit, because I think they're owned by the same company that owns Bitfinex, right?
Yes, Bitfinex owns them, yeah.
So then they start getting into some shit. Panamanian banks will let you bank with anybody. So then someone approaches you like, hey, you know, you want to take my $10 million? And you're like, where'd it come from? And they're like, does it matter? And you're like, it's $10 million. This will help our project a lot. You know, then things start to go down.
Yeah, it says here that like the New York Attorney General has served them several times to try like get the transaction records between Tether and Bitfinex, and they never get a good answer. Like they never get what they want to show any kind of transparency.
No, look, it's like
I mean, and obviously, right?
I'm in awe why people give people the benefit of the doubt over and over and over and over again. It's like when they didn't produce the audit and they came up with some bullshit, you right there, you're like, yo, this is crap. You know, second time that happens, it's 100% they don't have the money, or they would have. It's so easy to do. And when that happens, you solidify yourself and you never have to do that again, you know, or at least for the next 5 years. Like everyone's like, oh, they're like whispering, oh, I heard that. And you come out and you're like, yo, no, that's not true. And you drop that audit report, then everybody shuts up and they will shut up forever. But then you realize that the rumors are there for a reason, potentially. You can't believe rumors. But the second time that they came back and they're like, yeah, or Roger Ver's like, I've looked into it. I give it my thumbs up. I was like, yeah, fuck this. Fuck this. They have $0.
Yeah, I still want to hear Elon's on board, then we're good to go.
So banks
how much longer do you want to do this too?
You know, maybe we wrap up on the hour.
Okay, so another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm out of things to talk about, so I guess all we have left is do you want to just keep taking questions from the chat?
Yeah. So Hodl Club says banks are not 100% backed. USD or any fiat is not 100% backed. This is true, but the thing is that when you have your money in the bank, it's their one-to-one, right? So okay, yeah. So Tether has to put their money in a bank, and so when they put their money in the bank, that money then gets loaned out on the fractional reserve system. So you're accepting that when you got into Tether. And so what Tether is actually less backed than how the banks are backed, because they're saying, yeah, we don't, even if you trust the banks or not, the money in the bank isn't all there. You know what I'm saying? So like there's even less money for that fractional reserve system to happen. So they're less backed than a bank that had pure one-to-one backing of their entire volume, because both sums of money are sitting in a bank.
Also, they said they weren't.
Right, they said they weren't.
Oh, they were, but they weren't. Yeah, but I don't know why you lied. That sounds so silly.
Yeah, in the scheme of stable coins, I've thought about this, and I think CryptoWag said any stable coin that you think is doing it right tech-wise. No one has any tech on a stable coin. That's kind of half of it. You just basically accept money, you do the KYC, you have the licenses, you stick in the bank, and you're like, you thumbs up. What I see people doing is, what will happen is they will offer some sort of percentage rate, and these things will start to look like bank accounts, right? Because those that can offer more, the better rate, that's who you bank your money with. And then you're going to just use the stable coins of a bank, right? And then these stable coins are going to be essentially measurements of how liquid these banks are, right? So if Tether's not liquid and you can easily swap over to another stable coin, you're going to sell that and then get another stable coin. So the price is going to reflect in that. So Tether's not going to be $1. It's going to reflect the true liquidity of that. And that's where I think a lot of stable coins are going to be. They're just going to become banks again. And this is what I said earlier, like Marshall McLuhan, technology ultimately becomes the antithesis of itself. And if you're not aware of that, then you can't design technology that ultimately is against that. Like if you're self-aware, you can do something about it. But if you're not, and you just blindly create these stable coins, right? Everyone hates fiat currency, but stable coins, we need stable coins. Well, it's kind of antithesis, right? Thoughts on the Facebook stablecoin announcement? I haven't read the actual announcement. I just heard that like people were thinking about it. I think it's probably going to be an internal network thing. But who knows? Can you comment on exchanges? No. No, I cannot. Does Lamden deserve to be used over F, and why should it be? Could Lamden reach widespread adoption? What would be the catalyst? I don't think any project deserves anything, and so I expect to prove to people that it's a good piece of software, and then therefore convince them to use us when they're making a decision. Do I want to use Lamden or Ethereum? They use Ethereum, and have a pipeline for projects to migrate over if they want to. But you can't act like you deserve anything, because people are going to be like, well, screw you, you know. I'm not. So I would rather focus on making some sort of really interesting application that people really like. The killer dApp. Like, what's the killer dApp? I think that the killer dApp, or at least something that I'm kind of doing in my spare time, is this. I really like Factorio. I really like this game called Off-World, which is like this economic RTS game. And I'm trying to come up with like a strategy game like that, where you buy tiles on a world map, and each of those tiles has a resource potential, which you can mine the resources from. So you can put like a little oil derrick on it, and you can make oil, and then you need power to power up all your little buildings. And over time, you start mining resources and things like that. And you then have this little nation, right? And you want to build your nation and fortify it, and you get little guns and things to make sure no one blows up your shit, or you could blow up other people's shit. And it's a fixed world. So eventually you run out of space, and you have to start to, you know, battle with each other and things like that. And the entire mechanism would be like, if you wanted to, like if you were producing more oil than you were using, you could sell that, and that would be tokenized. And then it's like, that's an interesting strategy game. And it's kind of like EVE Online. And there's like this article where this battle happened, and like $100,000 of like real world assets were lost. I think like if you can come up with games like that, it's really interesting. And on blockchain, you'll be able to replay it, right? So you could have a game and you could be like, the game is going and you can replay and see everybody's action because it's automatically recorded. And it's all open too, so you know no one's cheating and you know all the rules to the game because they're all there. So I'm working on this way to make everything codified into like dynamic functions. Like I'll spill into it a little bit more. Yeah, so I came up with this function where like the world is defined a random noise function of elevation. So you have like an elevation map, and then a humidity map is random, and then temperature is based on how high or low you are from the center equator. And based on those three parameters, each tile has a certain resource potential. So like, for example, oil in the system is positively correlated to temperature, negatively correlated to elevation, and negatively correlated to humidity. And the point was there, just naively, in deserts, then there would be more oil. That's not the only place that oil exists, but for this game it would be. And you know that, and that's codified. And each of these resources has one of those like correlation maps and has some sort of functionality to the weighting. So like also the temperature is the highest weighted parameter. It gets 50% of the weight. And then the elevation is mediumly weighted, and then the humidity is lowly weighted. But a lot of these games, I think, or these interesting things, like whether it's card games or something, that I think is going to be the first sort of thing that kind of pops off with blockchain in general. Like a compelling interactive game that has some monetary reward to it is interesting to me.
They still have truly decentralized as a game like that. Like, would you, as the game creator, would you retain any kind of control over the smart contract, or would you let it just go?
I mean, like, there's something that I was thinking about. Like, you want to tune it. Like, all these initial parameters might be totally fucked, and like you might have a poorly tuned game. So you probably want to play it a lot to get the tuning right. But myself as an operator, I probably don't. I could be like, I monetize it by saying I take a transaction fee, right? Or I like when you buy resources, I take like a markup on that, and that's how I monetize.
You would see it, like everyone would see that in the contract. It would say you would see you're taking whatever 2% of every transaction off to your personal wallet, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's fine because you're delivering value, and that's kind of what I want people to do.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's a couple interesting things about that because I've thought of similar type situations, but the idea that this game plays itself, right? And also considering it's decentralized, the front end for that game, people could make different front ends for that game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the one you made. Someone could just decide to make a better front end, right? But they could never make a front end that did any more game-wise because the smart contract controls what can actually be done, right? And that's a cool idea to me. Also, a smart contract that plays a game, like something like you said, or maybe a shorter version of what you were talking about. And then once that game there's a winner, right? That winner's logged, and then the whole game just can reset and start all over again, all automatically, right?
Yeah.
And it's all like the whole world plays it. It's just up there, and whoever's playing it, and then whoever wins.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
I think it's a great idea.
1 sec. I gotta take a break.
actually transcribed the whole last video, episode 1. It was 1,800 words. He does it because he loves to do it. That's the kind of crazy I love. And we have the transcript. We just haven't put it up yet. I'm not sure where we're going to store that yet. But we'll provide the link. And I don't know if he's going to do it for every video, but people were requesting it. So there is somebody that's doing it. And I also have people that we have a blog called Lamden World, and there's people that translate our articles into Chinese, and someone does it into Dutch, I believe, as well. So yeah, I get a lot of help from people, and I really appreciate of it. This community is fantastic.
Yeah. Peace out, CryptoWag. Thanks for the questions.
Yeah, I hope you come back.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Cypher says, have you ever played Rust? I have not played Rust, but I watch Rust videos. I watch people play Rust, and I never thought I'd be someone who watches other people play games. But that's also part of it, because you watch these raids that people do, and it's absolutely insane. And the amount of time it takes to build these resources, and then it's just destroyed. I'm like, oh my God, it's insane. It could be like a potential economy, Any other questions? Are you aiming to build game apps or push game apps to be developed in the Lamden network? Yeah, totally. I want to get more involved with the development community and demonstrate what's going on here with building a game. And like, that's kind of, this ties a little bit into marketing. Like, what's the more compelling argument? You spend that $1 of Google AdWords or whatever to get someone to your site, and that person is some crypto enthusiast, or there's someone who wants to build their own game and they're looking at different options. I don't think that market's ever been tapped. And you could say, like, build your own strategy game, monetize it instantly, and you don't even talk about the blockchain. That's a little more compelling, I think.
Yeah, that's not necessarily marketing. It's more like educational. It's educating, right?
Yeah.
We would definitely have to do that. And also plugins for things like Unity and game engine makers. That's all in the realm of possibility as well. I don't have anything planned. I'm not announcing anything, but all that stuff's kind of cool too. And I would guarantee if Lamden takes off, people will do that. That stuff will just become available. Which is a cool idea.
So like for Unity, it's C#, and like I said, all of our protocols and libraries are open source. So it's not like there's anything that we can't create to be a C# native library. Also,
you can use JavaScript as well.
Oh, there you go. We have a JavaScript library, right? So you would just integrate that, and then you could do transactions from your game. So if you want to have your game objects on a blockchain, or you want to have your token on a blockchain for your game, there you go. Just integrate the JavaScript library. And yeah.
Yeah, I know Engine, who I think is a fantastic project, just because people have sent it to me, and I've taken a look at it a couple different times, and they really early on noticed that Ethereum wasn't really doing what they wanted it to do, and so they took it upon themselves to create standards and this and that. All of which I've seen can essentially just be like a table, on Lamden. So
yeah,
there's a crazy amount of work being put in to make Ethereum useful in a way that it just probably doesn't necessarily want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it better. On that note, so that's what makes Lamden better. But on that note, are you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. Do like a last roll call. Anyone wants any last questions?
What's the burning question of the night, guys? I think we're on a bit of a lag, Stu. So.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Hold or Ethereum. Couple questions, but you'd have to scroll up. If I said any ones.
How do you feel about Tron and companies building hype with no product? Piggybacking off of that, do you feel that you have a moral obligation to show you can be successful in crypto doing things the right way? And how do you think Lamden's success might inspire people? So we know how you feel about Tron and companies building hype with no product. I don't feel like I have to have a moral obligation, but I feel like there's a gap that's not being filled that would require that moral obligation. So it's not like, you know, I'm more like looking at it like no one's acting in this particular way, and they could, and that would give a lot more like trust and appreciation to the people who are skeptical. And no one's doing that. And I think it's just because it's just the game's easier to play the way it's been playing. I don't feel like I'm morally obliged to do that. I feel like it's just something that I see that there's a big niche there that's just not being filled. How do you think Lamden's success might inspire people? I don't know. I mean, I think that really people should just push themselves and step out of their comfort zone. I know that sounds a little like dumb, but a lot of things that you potentially perceive as the truth, I don't think you've allowed yourself to challenge those beliefs and see if they really are or not. And so, you know, just try some stuff. I don't feel comfortable being like a beacon of like, I don't know, like how will your success like enlighten? I don't know. I mean, people are going to do what they want to do. And I hope that like people see what I'm doing, not necessarily say anything too crazy, because they could definitely do it themselves. And that's kind of why this whole thing kind of came about. I was like, these sort of projects, it seems like anybody can kind of do this. Why can't I? And here we are.
So then, I see there's some more questions popping up here, but I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Then, you want to save them for next week?
Yeah, let's do that for next week.
We'll just save some questions for next week. Good questions, guys. Thank you for everyone for tuning in on such short notice. But unfortunately, that's going to be the format we go with. Is you know, whenever Stu's got the time, he'll kind of let me know, and we'll kind of work it out between us. And I may have jumped the gun tweeting it out yesterday because at the end of Stu's run, he kind of didn't feel up to it anymore, so I had to cancel that. But we're going to try not to do that. Sound the alarm before we can actually get it done.
Yeah.
But in general, it's going to be more chill. If we can get between us and actually schedule one, that probably be few and far in between. And it's not every week, so don't expect it to be a weekly podcast. But in any event, thanks everyone for tuning in. Do anything else?
Oh, that's it. Appreciate you guys as always.
Peace.
Thanks.